everyone, I am here with a review of lesson 2. This review is for cello players, and if you have your cello, if you don't have your cello out, I would encourage you to pause the video and go get it, because we're actually going to play through some of our homework right now. So I have up on the screen page 5, which was part of our homework this week, and everyone should either have a lesson book or they should have the photocopy that I gave you of page 5 in your lesson. But right now you don't even need that out. I have it up on the screen, and it should actually be easier to follow along this way. So the great thing about this lesson book is that at the top of every page it has this What's New section that tells us what we need to be looking out for this week that we haven't seen before. Everything else is sort of like a review. So it says right here, new note, open G string. Now the nice thing is this isn't a new note to play, it's just a new note to read. We actually played the open G string in our first lesson. Remember, we were plucking the strings A, D, G, and C. So the G string, the second to the lowest one, so not the lowest, but the one right next to it, is G, and that's the note that we're reading right here. So the new thing is reading it, see it, that G falls on the bottom line of your staff. The other thing over here that's new is the repeat sign, which I bet is not new for most of you. I have a feeling most of you will remember this from music class. When you see those two dots at the end, it means pop back and do it again. So repeat sign means do it again. So I'm looking right now at number 5, the 3-string dance. What we're going to do right now is go through and read the note names, then we'll play it together. So at home right now, you can read along with me. Here I go. D, 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 G, 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 D, 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 A, rest. A, D, 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 A, D, D, G, 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 rest. Now, before we play, make sure you have your good posture, that your cello is right in front of you. I know it's hard to see for me, that your C peg is right at your left ear. Now, I'm just going to stand up for a minute so I can remind you, that when we play pizzicato, we use our left hand. We make that L, put it right up against the fingerboard, right down here, and this is where we're going to pluck. So don't pluck way up here. Some of you had that issue this week. Bring that hand down. This is where we're going to pluck. So let me sit back down again here. Get myself set. We're going to play through number 5. Here we go. Oops. Sorry about that. Okay, here we go now. D, 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 G, 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 D, 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 A, rest. A, D, 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 A, D, D, G, 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 rest. Great, so if you got that, we're going to move on to number 6. If you didn't get that, it's okay. Just pause the video and go back and do it again. That's the nice thing about playing with a video. If you don't get it the first time, you can do it as many times as you need to until you feel comfortable with it. And that's our goal for this week, is making sure you feel really good about playing page 5. So I'm moving on now to Recover the Bow. Now, people tend to get a little bit nervous when they see that title because we haven't started using our bow yet. And it's okay. We're still not going to use our bow. We're just going to play Recover the Bow pizzicato with plucking, and that's okay. You'll see on the top of some of these notes there are these symbols. Those are bow direction symbols, and we'll learn about those when we use our bow. But for right now, thank you for being patient. We're just going to do it pizzicato, and it's still going to sound great. You'll see at the end of line 6, we have that repeat sign. That means when we get to the end, we're going to go back and do it again. So we're going to read the notes. We're going to read it once and then do the repeat. So you'll actually get double practice this time. Here we go from the beginning of number 6. A, rest. D, 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 rest. A, D, D, G, 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 rest. D, 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 rest. G, 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 rest. D, 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 rest. A, rest. D, 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 rest. A, D, D, G, 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 rest. D, 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 rest. G, 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 rest. D, 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 rest. Excellent. So we're going to go through, play that one. This one starts on A. We haven't started many of the exercises on A. They're kind of trying to trick you here. So make sure when you set your index finger down on a string, it's the A string, the one all the way over to the right. Here we go. A, rest. D, 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 rest. A, D, D, G, 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 rest. D, 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 rest. G, 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 rest. D, D, A, D, D, D. Do it again. A, rest. D, 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 rest. A, D, D, G, 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 rest. D, 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 rest. G, 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 rest. D, 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 rest. Nice. So the good news is, if you can play 5 and 6, then you definitely can play 7, 8, and 9. So I'm going to leave those for you to do on your own. But let me just show you real quick down here on number 9. There is one other new thing on this, and it's that it's a 2-liner. We've never had a piece of music that was 2 lines, which is really exciting. Music typically is more than 1 line. In fact, when you get to orchestra next year, you probably will have a full page or maybe even 2 full pages of music to play. So sometimes when people get to the end of this first line, they get kind of like freaked out and they just have this awkward pause and then they go to the next line. The thing about playing music is that it's just like reading a book. So when you get to the end of a line, you have to go right down to the next line. There should be no pause. So if you see where my mouse is right here on this D, if I was playing this, it would sound like this. D, rest, A, A. So you can't let that line let you miss any beats. You just have to keep going. So that's your homework in the book this week. Take some time, look through page 5. But the other thing we learned this week, which everyone was really excited about, was the beginning of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Before we can play that, you see that there is a new note written in there, B. We don't have a B string, so we actually have to learn how to play that note with our left hand. And we learned that when you play notes with your left hand, your thumb is going to go on the back of the fingerboard like this. Let me turn to see if there's a good way to show you this. Maybe like this. There we go. Okay, thumb right back there. I gave everyone a sticker on the backs that should help them, but even if it moves off, just thumb goes to the back. Okay. On my instrument, on this one, I have tapes going across, but most people have little stickers. They should have 3 stickers, and you're looking for the one that is yellow. So imagine that yellow went all the way across, and you're going to put your index finger, your first finger, on the A string where the yellow tape is. That's going to make the note B. If I take that finger off, the string sounds like this. That's A. The minute you put that finger down, it becomes the note B. It sounds like this. And the only way to play A again is to take it off. So this is A, put it down for B, A, B. Very important that that thumb stays back on the fingerboard like that. Also very important that you use the tip of your finger, not the pads. You shouldn't have squash claps fingers like this. They should be using the tip, nice and rounded. So the beginning of Twinkle, if I set my thumb back here and I'm ready to go, I'm going to pluck 2 Ds. Then I'm going to go over to the A string and play 2 A's. Put my index finger down on the A string, that's B, and then take it off for A. So a little bit more fluid through that, it will sound like this. D, D, A, B, B, and A. Okay, so those are the things we worked on in our lesson this week. Take some time, make sure you're really comfortable with page 5 and that you perfect this beginning of Twinkle Twinkle. We're going to learn even more notes with our left hand in our lesson this week, which is super exciting. So happy practicing, and I'll see everyone soon.